you feeling marvelous enough?
I'm feeling very marvelous this Monday. So everybody, welcome back to Marvelous Mondays. Thank you, Ketel One, another rally, Portland Cocktail Week, for having us again. My name is Fanny Chu, and this is Lil Bowie. I am the head bartender at a transportive tropical bar in Brooklyn. And this is my co-host, Amy Ward. What's good in Chicago, Amy?
Hello, Fanny. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here today with you and our special guest for this next Marvelous Monday. Today, coming from Sacramento, California, we have Russell Martin and Trevor Easter, who are going to talk to us today about they paved paradise and put up a parking lot. So, gentle people, would you like to say hello and tell us a little bit about what we're talking about today?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having us. We're really excited to do this. We're kind of in the middle of the heat of the moment of this COVID and trying to figure out how to stay afloat. And so it's been fun for us to kind of, self-reflect a little bit and go through this process. We were asked to do this like a couple of days ago. And so it's been really fun. Russell and I have been like sidekicks through this whole thing, and we just had to throw this presentation together. And so I hope it's really entertaining and great. I mean, we're super excited to talk about it.
I have no doubt in my mind that it'll be very exciting. So tell us what's going on. Tell us what your situation's out there in California, and what have you done to not use the PIVOT word, however, do amazing things in the process.
Yeah, well, go for it. Why don't you hop in?
Yeah, so I mean, from the start, everything's shut down, and so we, had to jump in and try to do a little to-go cocktail program, and then kind of went from there. A few bumps in the road.
Yeah. Yeah, I think California is tricky because we feel really blessed we're not in a giant city, and so we had to kind of like reassess because it was changing so quick. I almost said the word. It was changing so quickly that what we were allowed to do and what we couldn't do, the to-go thing, being outside in Sacramento, those things were changing overnight. We were shut down, we weren't shut down, and then we were shut down again. And so, we were really trying to figure out how to go about this. And I think the ultimate message here is we discovered two things about ourselves, and we're going to get into this stuff for sure in a minute. But it was about how much our positive relationships with our team and our city, and even the local officials paid off in dividends in the end, to help us kind of maneuver this. And simultaneously, we proceeded really slowly with kind of making the right decision and testing the waters and moving instead of trying to jump full in with some ideas. So, I think for the most part, we're going to cover kind of our failures, because we've totally screwed up a bunch. And then we're going to go over some of the successes we are currently having, and hopefully that's going to get us through this so we can be the bar we wanted to be on the other end. I should cover just a tiny bit of Russell and I. So I moved to Sacramento 3 years ago to open the Snug. We partnered with this really great family, the DeVere White family. We're going to bring them up a couple of times. They're just tremendous, philanthropic, amazing human beings. And Russell, when we opened this place, I'm going to speak on behalf of him because he won't do it. He's too humble. But when we opened, we were determined to hire a majority of our staff of people who had never worked in bars before, who had zero experience. That was a big part of our principles. And so Russell comes from Starbucks and then a brief stint in nerdy coffee. And through our first year,
5 years.
5 years. All right, fine. I'm old, so that seems like a little bit of time. So in this time, the Snug was only open for a year. Russell went from coming in with no experience to now he's the bar manager, and as a tremendous gratitude has helped me survive this, has shown up every day, and we have been quarantine buddies besides Lindsay, my girlfriend, and my daughter Juniper. It's I see Russell probably just as much as them, and so he's been a tremendous asset. And so we have a lot of good stories to share on how we together didn't kill each other.
Yeah,
that's very things. So I have a super important question for Russell, though. What's your partner number?
1227685.
105-8540.
Oh my God! I have a five-digit one from way back. 5-digit one, yeah.
What are you talking about?
It's okay. We'll fill you in later. to the amazing things that you've done, triumphs, failures, and things like that.
Yeah.
It's our Starbucks numbers.
Yeah.
Oh, got it. Cool. I'm kind of jealous. I feel like their onboarding and training and just general processes are amazing. I mean, Russell gives me a lot of insight, and we certainly adopt some of that, but I'm kind of jealous.
It's definitely not a bad company to work for when you are struggling, and they have like great benefits and stuff. So I couldn't complain. Learned
Also,
a lot.
it helps us become better bartenders, learning
Exactly.
how to really fast
Multitask. Yeah.
early in the morning.
You know,
But we digress.
we'll get into some of this stuff because I know Russell's having some like flashbacks to Starbucks now that we brought a bunch of blenders in and shit. Like, but like we're going back to the root, and he's like, they make this thing. We use it at Starbucks, and it's all really helpful. It's really funny. Cool.
Indeed.
Well, shall we get started on the slideshow? Let's roll. We can go to that next slide, Leo. Okay, so we felt like we couldn't have a conversation about what we've done with what we're doing without talking about what we've done. That seems like the right starting point. It's so sad for me to read RIP for now across the top. This is our little baby, but I wanted to paint a picture because I think it's important to understand where we were and how different that is to where we currently are. So the Snug is a 1,400 square foot bar in Sacramento. We're kind of hidden, but on a really popular street. We opened last year, and over the course of the last year and a half, or not even a year and a half, we were open like 14 months. It was really well received and supported by the community. We're just so immensely proud of what it's done. We've got 3 Tails recognitions, which is cool for best bar team, best new bar, best high volume bar. So, we set out to do something that was impactful, not only for our local community, but also, we wanted to help show that we could bring this high level of cocktail to this really crazy volume bar. We have a disco ball that drops out of the ceiling. Like people get on the bar and get crazy. But at the same time, you can see like that drink in the middle, that's called a jet ski. And it's like, that's a really good example of what we are. We think most cocktails should come with snacks. That's something I've learned from Devin Tarby. And I think, when we built this bar, we were like, let's build a really nice, pretty, comfortable space. And then also like make sure people know we don't take ourselves that serious. And we feel like we kind of hit that. And our motto is welcome home. And that's really who we are. We actually built the entire bar in Ireland and we shipped it over, which is a bit crazy. Yeah, and the wallpaper is custom. It's our partners, the DeVere Whites. It's their family crests. It's printed on faux leather. So we really put a lot of love in it. We wanted it to feel authentic and real, and then we wanted our team to feel authentic and real as well. So, we were kind of like hitting our little peak when this happened, and it was pretty devastating. I'm not gonna lie, and we were pretty bummed. But do you want to touch anything about Sun?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the big things is we created a place that, while it's great for the customers, I think that as a staff and as a team and kind of as a family, we all love being here, and it felt really good. Everything that we did just felt, when you came in, you felt the moment, and you felt like you really like, I don't know.
There's intention there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a level of authenticity that people look for these days. I think millennials were really great at embracing that, and we knew that if we didn't touch every piece of the space and intentionally pick people who shared that kind of ideology with us, it wasn't going to feel that way. So we became part of a community where I think we were more than just a place to kind of get a buzz. And so when something like this happens, it changes the perspective of what we are for that community. And Russell and I, after taking a few weeks off when we were shut down, and as a matter of fact, every single time we've shut down prior to being forced to, because it felt like that was the right thing to do for our team and for the neighborhood. But when we got shut down, it's like we had to reflect, and we were like, people look to us for something, for comfort, and we need to figure out how to do that. And so the next few slides are going to be really fun because it's going to be like the journey of how that morphed into something. At the very end, if you guys don't know what we've done, it's going to be really funny when we start to get a little further down, because you can kind of tell we're going crazy, and it's really starting to show. But we can go to the next slide, Leo, if you don't mind. Okay, so bam, COVID. should be a great band name. So what's next? So I think we probably got a lot of people here who don't live in California. So I think it's important to touch on the way that the state is operating. So like larger cities like San Francisco and LA have pretty much been completely shut down, whereas smaller communities like Sacramento, which is actually a pretty big city, but have had adjusted ways that they can operate. So we're really fortunate to be where we are because we've had a lot more autonomy, it feels like, to be able to move, and we've had a lot less of outbreaks going on. So it just feels a bit safer and it feels more comfortable. We don't feel like we're really risking a whole lot. So one unique thing about California and some other states is that we have a variety of type of liquor licenses. And there just so happens to be this one called a Type 48. They're very hard to get. I don't know how long they've not been giving these out. I'm sure somebody right now is wishing they could just chime in and tell me the exact year, because bartenders happen to know that weird stuff. But these Type 48s exist. And so when we got this 1,400 square foot space, we went and found one and we bought it. So it's essentially grandfathered in. What that means is we don't have to cook food. And in the bar world and in the business perspective of a bar world, that is incredibly advantageous. Like people will criticize it and be like, people want food. It's like the amount of labor and cost you save on this is insane. So when we opened the Snug, we were very proud of it. They're not cheap, but we had this license and it was a great business model for us. Well, COVID happens, and guess what? That license sucks now, because these new regulations force us to serve food. So we kind of decided to go, well, let's be cheeky about it and let's see how far we can stretch this. So before we could open the bar up, to go was an option. That photograph on this slide, by the way, is actually a photograph from one of our regulars. That's the kit that we sent home. So that's what it looked like. So we were like, how do we bring that experience? So Russell's going to touch on the next one of our to-go thing.
Yeah, so we started the to-go, the whole to-go program, and then we started to try to figure out whether or not this was actually going to be sustainable for our business, whether or not like we could really survive off what we're getting in. And as much as our customers seemed to love it, we were doing what, maybe 5 to 20 sales a day.
Yeah, it wasn't enough. Absolutely. And it took a lot more labor to get people to know about it, a lot more marketing. And we were like kind of looking at projections going, God, if we really killed this, it still wasn't going to do it. But one thing we did learn for sure is when we hopped into this, that we were like, okay, we can no longer go to the table and chat with people. How do we bring that experience to them out of paper bag being handed out a door? Like, what the hell does that look like? And so, it was about taking a little bit of an effort to make a label. But I think the biggest thing was we wanted them to work. We wanted them to have to go for it. Everyone was trying to figure out how to make drinks at home. There should be this experiential thing. I didn't want them to pop it and drink it. I wanted them to do something. So we gave them the giant ice cubes. We gave them the bottle, and we gave them garnish. But what we did is we gave them instructions. And in those instructions, it was like, welcome, you're the newest bartender of the Snug. This is what you're going to need. This is how to do it. And it was super cheeky. And then take photos, film it, and show us. And of course people did. And we would share it. And it would be them on Zoom calls with their friends shaking, and having a really nice time. And we were like, that feels good. And we could tell that felt good. And we stamp our ice cubes so the ice cube said the Snug on it. All those things people really identified with. And they might have been stuff that they glossed over a little bit as guests. But in the case of their home, they were like, this is so special. It takes me back. The one thing we didn't do out of the gate that we ended up doing that really hit home was we started putting our coasters in it. And that got this really emotional response from people that they would put their drink on the coaster at home and enjoy it. And there was just something about it. So we quickly learned that there was a really strong desire for comfort and something familiar, but also for a distraction. And so we found that. So to go back a little bit on our license issue, we had to do food. So being crafty, I was like, let's sell them with instant ramen. Let's put instant ramen with this and we'll send it out. And they go home, they add hot water, they do it. We developed really great relationships with the ABC. We work with a consultant, and we asked, what's capable? What are we capable of? What can we do? And we got kind of this feeling of, it's kind of go for it. So we went for it. And somebody called and complained and called the cops on us. Someone narked on us. And we got shut down. And that was it was really unfortunate, but I think we weren't really comfortable with what we were doing in the first place in terms of it not being a sustainable business. It didn't feel special. It was just something to do. So Russell and I, again, we looked at it. We had all these batches. We had all these bottles. We had all this shit. And we like looked at each other and we were like, great, our bar's now useless. You know, our beautiful space, we can't do anything with right now. So we took a little bit of a breather and we looked around and we're like, what could our team handle? What were we capable of getting into? You could go to the next slide now. You're like, hey. Okay. So the biggest thing was like, we had to really look at what our resources were. We thought all the time that our resources were our knowledge depth of cocktails and spirits, our hospitality, you know, all these things, our beautiful space. Those are our resources. But now we're kind of standing outside on the sidewalk and we have none of those things. So we're going to kind of cover how we started. I want to point out on the right, or I don't know how this looks on your screen, I'm assuming, but are the two logos of our of what we've done. So we took the Snug, which is a recognizable brand, and I won't go too much into them right now. I'm going to cover them in a minute, but we threw it on the burger joint, burgers and stuff, and then we decided to completely rebrand our bar, and we opened a bar called the Doobie Bar in honor of all of our fathers and their terrible music. So, and their strange drug terminology. So anyways, we're going to cover a little bit of like how we got to this decision, and then we're going to get into like the juicy. And then I promise at the end, Russell came up with one of the most brilliant ways for us to navigate COVID as a team. And I just really look forward to sharing that slide because I think it's just one of the most brilliant things I've seen anyone do. And it's going to be super resourceful for anybody who's out there trying to get through the shit. Go for it.
Yeah, so I think one of the first things that we had to like figure out is how people felt in the moment, what they were comfortable with, what they were willing to do. And so with that, making things as contactless as we could felt right. Even right in the beginning before they told us, pushing everything outside, onto the sidewalk, you know, to go delivery, curbside sort of things, all those things just felt like what we needed to do.
Yeah. So we then realized that we have a sister restaurant that's like, you know, 6 or 7 blocks away. It's an Irish pub, and it's under the De Vere. It's called De Vere's. It's their family name. And there's something about an Irish pub that feels special inside of an Irish pub. Watching like a soccer match, drinking Guinness, like that's the thing. And we knew, and they knew quickly that wasn't something that was going to work because that experience can't really go outside. So we looked at that opportunity and we saw a chance to take a concept over there. Now for Russell and I, we thought that we were going to take a concept over to the pub just to do to-go cocktails. So we were like, let's actually it's a full kitchen. It's a full restaurant. Let's take over the foyer. It's got a little window in it. Let's open a fast food joint. Let's sell cheap cheeseburgers just so we can sell to-go cocktails, right? That was one of the ideas we had. And that's what we thought was going to happen. That's absolutely not what happened. It didn't play out like that at all. So when Russell and I sat and looked at it, we were like, we have this like little 100 square foot foyer with a window in it. That could be a fast food window. Okay, cool. In our neighborhood in Sacramento, which is called Midtown, which is kind of the grid in the center of Sacramento, they don't allow fast food. So there is no corporate fast food besides like Chipotle. And now we have a Shake Shack, of course, like right when we open a burger joint. Sorry, excuse my F, but anyways, so we're in heavy competition. They don't know this, but we're in heavy competition with them. They don't. And we realized that was missing, and burgers were comfortable, and that made a lot of sense. Then in front of the Snug, the city started to allow outside dining, and the owners of the building were like, hey, why don't you take over this outdoor space? And so then we had this total asphalt parking lot that's, I'm not kidding, it's right next to the dumpster like enclosure. So we're like, great, hot asphalt, it's 110 outside.
Oof.
Well scented, different, if you will. Very nice.
So we were looking at a 100 square foot foyer with a window in it at a closed Irish pub, and we were looking at an asphalt next to a dumpster, and that was all we had for resources. And then we started to kind of dig deep and figure out what was going on. Simultaneously, the pub got a grant from FEMA to provide meals for elderly people every single day. So their kitchen staff was in there doing that early in the morning. And so it made sense to start to do this burger thing. And I just want to reiterate, and this is a really important point, because I'm sure we have a really large cross section of people watching this, from bar owners to bartenders to aspiring bartenders. More than ever in my 15, 16-year career, have I ever realized that the relationships that you are building in good times become incredibly valuable in bad times. I want to drive that point home so hard to you young bartenders. If you don't know your city council member, you need to get on that. If you don't know the board for the street that you're on that has a bunch of bars, you need to get on that. That stuff has become so valuable. I can't emphasize it enough. Henry and Simon DeVere White, who own the pub and who are our partners here at Snug, they have spent over a decade developing these relationships. They are board members of the California Restaurant Association, CRA, which is the largest lobbying group for California restaurants. They are board members on our street. They know the city council members. They have their phone numbers. Like, they jumped on this not only to help us survive, but for all of our neighbors to get by as well. So the reason why people are out on the street here in Sacramento are because people like them who have those connections, who develop those relationships. So if you want to spend some time learning classic cocktails, developing your technique, memorizing stuff, that is absolutely profoundly important to your job. But I would say you won't realize it until there's a problem, how important it is to develop relationships with your city.
Yep.
Your neighbors. You need to make that part of your growth right now. It may be too late for this incident, but you never know. So picking great landlords, you might find the most beautiful space, and the person has a bad reputation for being a terrible landlord. That beautiful space might not be as great as you think it is.
True.
So we have great landlords. We have great representatives in the city who listen, and they made this happen. So we can go to the next slide, and we'll get into like what that is. Rant over.
Not even a rant. That's great. That's great advice. Amazing advice.
Great tips.
And full disclosure, I didn't realize that till it was too late, but we're luckily we partnered with and we work with some really great people who are way ahead of the curve on that.
Mm-hmm.
And that has become the greatest asset we have. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Snug Junior. So Russell and I started to do burgers as a way to facilitate cocktails. And it turns out the team at the Irish pub make really good cheeseburgers. And no one really cared about the cocktails anymore. So, I guess go for it. Go for it.
I mean, that was the funny thing, is that we started this as, our heads were in drinks, cocktails. What can we do to sell more drinks? And we tried the burger. It was great. I think we quickly realized that in California, I personally say that we're better than both Shake Shack and In-N-Out, but that's me. Please try it out. But yeah, and quickly we realized we're selling, I think, almost 3 times as many burgers a day as we do cocktails. And so we made a legit fast food restaurant. It happens to have cocktails, but that ended up not being the drive.
Yeah. And I think, Leo, can you pop the slide back up for us? Thanks. Awesome. I just to make sure I cover these things. We have to discuss the restrictions in which we found ourselves. We didn't have any money. And so we had to really play to our resources. The Wendy with the mask on that says Snug Junior, that was one of our most loved regulars, and he single line art drew that for us. And then the sign that you see that says Snug Junior hanging, I did that with just spray paint. And so, we had to really DIY, because we're not going to throw a bunch of money at this thing and then have the city shut it down. And so we really had to be super scrappy. And we kept the choices limited. And then as we grew, we were now I think there's 15 menu items.
More than that, probably.
And it's open 7 days a week. And it is a full-blown institution in Sacramento now. And people are really into it. And we're selling cheeseburgers. And our team was really, really excited to support it and be a part of it. And, I can't be grateful enough but I never imagined that we would be here as a burger joint from a fancy cocktail bar. But a couple of the marketing ideas, we work with this woman named Tina Ross out of Los Angeles. She's got a company called Soda Back. She is an incredible designer. And we work with some really great photographers. But for us, it was really important to drag our personal name, because it had a reputation, into the name of this business. That was our marketing strategy, because we wanted there to be brand recognition. When someone's like, what the hell is this thing? They were like, it must be the Snug people. And it gave them a little bit of confidence to dive in. And that was really kind of the move ultimately to make this work. And now we've got like natty wine and like we're doing like cool cocktails. We're reconsidering our drinks. We're bringing back our Snug greatest hits and we're serving them over there. And that's really working. And that's it. And it's a prime example of sitting down and thinking about your real resources. We have a kitchen that's being used for charity early in the morning that can easily cook some burgers on it. We have cheap packaging. We have like cheap overhead. We have good margin on these cocktails. We have like 4 picnic tables outside. We called our sound guy who set up our sound system in the Snug, and he donated, let us borrow like a sound system that we can put out there. So we drag like a subwoofer and speaker and we play music outside, and it feels really good. And it morphed to like a 4 or 5 day a week thing to 7 days a week. And on the weekends we stay open really late. And it's just like families crushing burgers and moms and dads drinking old fashions. I mean,
nice.
I think one of the other important things that we hit was trying to figure out what do people need right now. And, money's tight. People are worried about their jobs. And so one of our big things was we have a meal that's a burger, fries, and a beer for $10. And hitting that mark, like, it feels good. You look at it like, this is a deal. And I think that really resonated with people and brought them in.
Yeah, I think a big thing was we kind of had to rewrite our principles, but we definitely weren't tone deaf to the fact that people are struggling. And, there was a part of us that was like, let's do something esoteric and out there because there's no rules anymore. And what we really did is we self-reflected and we did the exact opposite. We're like, let's keep it cheap. Let's keep it affordable. And let's make it happen on as little labor as possible. And Russell's dead on. It was like, that's our core, is it's got to be affordable because at a certain point, people just need a little bit of comfort. And simultaneously, we were looking at wood tables on a sidewalk. And it's like, it makes sense to eat a burger and drink a beer on a picnic table on a sidewalk.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of what we noticed when we went around and saw other businesses operating. We just noticed that they just went in, grabbed their furniture and drug it outside. And something about that felt really heavy-handed and uninspired. And it also felt like you were constantly being reminded that we were in a shitty situation. And I think that we didn't want that. We wanted to create a new business that worked for what right now, that felt real in the moment and felt authentic and not like we were forced to do this.
I think something that people can get excited about. Through all this, there hasn't been a ton to be excited about. And so like for Midtown, having a new fast food restaurant, I think about 4 months ago, we got a Taco Bell and people lost their minds.
Like the Cantina one, like the
dine-in.
In city limits.
Yeah.
And people lost their minds. So clearly people wanted that sort of quick, easy food.
Yeah. Yeah. And we can jump to the next slide. We'll get into the next one. Okay. So Snug Junior gets going and burgers are flying. And all of a sudden in the state of California, they're like, hey, you know what, guys, we're doing such a great job. We can open up the inside of restaurants and bars. And so, we were very apprehensive. One of our strongest core values with our team is that we communicate very openly through Slack and in person. We have that is just a big part of who we are. If you have a problem, we talk about it. And really, we work as leaders. We work for our team. They don't work for us. So, as a collective, they're allowed to come together and decide what feels right and what doesn't. And they're ultimately in charge. So we opened up the Snug as Snug, reservation only though, and we just filled the seats appropriately. No one sat at the bar. We did all that. It was absolutely apparent by the second hour or so that this was not right, that this wasn't right. It didn't feel safe. We were uncomfortable. The guests were uncomfortable. A lot of the guests, I think, were there to make a statement that they didn't believe COVID existed. So they were just being outlandish. And we, on our own accord, shut back down. We were like, that's not right. That's not right. Our team didn't feel right. And so we just decided safety over money. And I want to be very clear. We do not deserve a back pat for that. That's how it should be. You don't get
It should be the standard for owners and managers moving forward. I really hope that there are those people listening to this conversation right now too.
Yeah.
What was it that made you guys feel uncomfortable? Like, was it because people weren't wearing masks, or like, how did you guys deal with people with that?
I think for me, I remember the Saturday, right, the last shift before we closed. I was walking home and I'm going through all these things in my head, and it wasn't one big thing. It was lots of little things. It's like, we're in this bar, we're trying to keep our same feelings. The music's blaring, so we have to lead. We're wearing a mask, but then we have to lean into our customers to hear them.
Right.
They're obviously not wearing masks.
Yeah.
And then we're having to be policemen almost, of like when people get up and they start feeling a little good, and they're also in this space that they're used to having kind of free reign on a Saturday night. Someone's up here dancing, like, okay, come on, just don't fall. And now we have to be like, put your mask on, don't talk to people. It wasn't the same place.
I was saying fun police. Sorry.
Another one to add on to that was that we were being very diligent about watching what other people were doing, looking for inspiration. And what we ended up finding were people just haphazardly packing their bars. And it was obvious that through that, they were going to come here. Mm-hmm. And that scared us because people in really tight clubs and stuff. And we're like, we're a pretty well-known bar around here. They're going to come through here and drag that through here. And it just felt wrong.
Did you guys have to have security?
No, we didn't really. We had a door person.
We had like normal. And especially since we're doing reservation, we had to have that person there. But and I think he touched on it. The thing is, we were going through town, and there's a lot of places that were doing really great things, but the places that weren't were doing it really bad, and some of them had some bad outbreaks, and we knew that was going to make its way here, and so we had to figure out a way to create more distance between us and the customers, because we can't control what they do. So we had to protect our staff. Yeah,
and this is a great way to get into this doobie bar. But we acknowledge that maybe like 4 or 5 bars around us closed, right? And so that for some of them was like a 2-week shutdown because they didn't know who was exposed, who on their team had got it. Like they had to sterilize the whole thing. And we were looking at it going, okay, maybe we jumped before we looked. And that's not sustainable. Like you can't shut down, you have product that goes bad. You have all this stuff that is a part of this. So we knew at that moment, the next decision we're going to make is going to be one that can sustain the rest of this. We want an idea for the next year, and we want it to work, and we don't want to have to shut down or endanger our staff or do any of this stuff. We need to find a way to navigate that. Mm-hmm. And so that was Doobie Bar, and we were at the point of almost no energy. So it's a miracle we're alive. But we're stressed out. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for anybody. We're not having the best time of our life right now. I know it looks really fun in these photos, but we're struggling. Yeah. But we've hit a new a territory where we're actually getting it right and it feels right. And we haven't felt that this whole time. So, and Doobie Bar had a lot to do with that. So we realized when we found out we had this asphalt patch, you can see it in the center photograph of what we made it look like. But when we realized that, we were like, what do we want? What's therapeutic for us? Because Russell and I at this point were just exhausted. Yeah. And we started to just kind of play with this idea of, God, it'd be nice to take a vacation. And then how do we facilitate that for people? How do we not fall into the cultural appropriation of tiki and stay away from some of that racist stuff? And how do we get into something that legitimately feels right about sitting outside? And where does that exist in the world? Mm-hmm. And so it started with a really small budget and a couple of picnic tables and some paint. And we painted them. And then I bought a thing of flags, and Russell and I stood on ladders and held it up. And we're like, that looks cool. Let's get 10 more. And then we picked up some palm trees, and we bought AstroTurf from a local soccer field that had closed and had it delivered. And we rolled it out, and there's lawn chairs, and there's these tables, and it just slowly over weeks turned into this ridiculous thing. I mean, there's so many touches you can't see in that little center photo. I mean, on the right-hand side, just beyond that cocktail next to the hot dogs, is I bought a backyard playhouse for a child. And we call it the Lifeguard Tower. And, it's raised. I had a custom built here in Sacramento by like a really, really lovely guy. And the reason we did that was we knew somebody was going to have to regulate the door at the Doobie Bar. And we didn't want them to be in contact with a ton of people. And we wanted it to be as safe as possible. So if we could create a barrier that also aesthetically fit what we were doing, this would allow it to not only serve as a function of safety, but also as part of the whole thing. So somebody sits up in the tower in a chair and no one can get that close to them because there's a railing and they're like 6 feet off the ground, you know? We were just trying our best to figure it out. Essentially the Doobie Bar is a yacht rock hot dog bar.
Dope.
Love that.
We call them Doobie Dogs. Our most popular is the Kenny Doggins. It has Danger Zone sauce on it. So like I promised earlier, as we went crazier personally, we just started to get more outlandish. And then we also really wanted to nod to like what made sense for yacht rock, and being on vacation in like the Caribbean. So, you know, Miami Vice, the Coke drink right there, we do like a banana rum with our centrifuge, and it's just banana, we call it a Chiquita Libre. And we have like a Catalina wine spritzer. I mean, like we just went for it. And it was super therapeutic.
Love that.
Really lovely. And so just for the sake of functionality, what you want to talk about how the ordering and stuff works?
Yeah, I think so. One of the things too is we realized we couldn't have the full service. We weren't going to have the server coming to your table, talking to you about drinks, figuring out exactly what you wanted. We were going to go for vacation style drinks. And so we had to figure out, one, how we were going to get it out there and to the customer and make it easy for them to order, but also two, like what system made it feel right to have that sort of ordering. So we tried a few different online ordering systems, found one that worked. And I think, you know, one of the things about having like the big giant blended pina colada is when you're on the beach or you're on a cruise, you're okay with just someone dropping that off. Mm-hmm. You don't need the full service element of it because like it's not about the drink. The drink kind of takes you to a place, you know, and it makes you feel like you're, you know, sitting on the beach somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and I think like aesthetically, the way that we set it up where they scan the code and stuff and the way the service worked didn't feel COVID inspired. It felt like kind of natural. Yeah. And in the way that it would be. And I think it also really gave us an advantage of setting the tone with our guests that we, you know, this is the way it is. And there's this distancing element, but it was in a really nice kind of cheeky way. To where when people are getting up, they're being pretty respectful as far as wearing masks and using our restrooms and stuff like that. But again, low budget. So DIY as much as we could. We didn't have a kitchen, right? We talked about that earlier. This bar doesn't have a kitchen. So we bought a cheap flat top. We put it outside and we looked at it. We're like, what the hell can we cook on this thing? And hot dogs were an easy one. And then it's like, you know, let's not be like shitty chef driven hot dogs. Let's do dirty dogs. And let's be simple because we don't need that added stress in our life. And this isn't a time to like prove anything to anybody. Like I don't need to, you know, we don't need a James Beard. We just need to stay open.
That's fair.
So, yeah.
I mean, you can get a James Beard award for your dogs, your dirty dogs.
You never know.
You know.
I'll tell you what, if they have one for puns, we're going to get it. But, and that would be like my dream. Yeah, so, you know, that was kind of the thing. It was like, this feels right. And I wish I could just kind of scoop you all up and set you down out there right now because like the flags are waving and it's really pretty. And you can like eat a hot dog and drink a Miami Vice. And I just feel like that transcends age and it transcends a lot of the different parts of society and everyone really feels comfortable in that. And the response has been tremendous. I mean, the first night we opened, I think we maybe 50, 60 people were in a line to get in. We've had 2-hour waits almost every night. It's been really, really wonderful. And we're looking to expand a little bit into our neighbors. Hopefully, you know, they'll let us take a little bit more space. We've calculated that each table was about how much an hour?
40 to 50.
40 to 50 bucks an hour. It's clunky with the ordering, so it's not super fast. But every time you add a table, you know, that's a lot more money. So we're looking at the ability to kind of expand and bring that up a little bit, you know. So that we're there. It runs on 4-person teams, and we're going to get into this really good slide next. But it runs on a 4-person team, and for us, that's sustainable. And so anyways, Doobie Bar. Okay.
Did you have a wait list that you have to like do for the tables, or how did you manage that?
Awesome question.
Yeah, so we actually kind of got lucky, and right around this time we had switched to a new reservation system. So for this, we didn't want to set up reservations because it was going to be too much of a headache, but it does have a wait list function. So when someone walks up, we take down their name, get their number, and we add them to the wait list. So that way we can text them as soon as something comes up. And that way they can actually, it helps the other businesses because we can send them, go over here, go over there, try them out, and we'll give you a heads up before your table's ready.
Yeah, and for full disclosure, it's called Talk. And it's the one that was by Aviary, the Nick Kirkonis, and we were using another brand. I won't throw somebody on the bus, but Ryan Schmezzi. But we just didn't like the functionality of it, and so we happened to switch over. And I want to say this because I know there's a lot of like practical information that people want out of us right now. We switched over to Toast, which is our POS system now, and that had a lot to do with their online store. It's like an arms race right now for POS systems to get Yeah, it's actually awesome. They're doing amazing stuff like QR codes to pay on receipts, like super cool. So from our personal experience, we had built out, maybe Henry's made like 4 or 5 online stores.
And I did like 3.5.
So we've got a lot of experience testing out POS systems. And so far Toast has been the best one for us. And I'm not there. No one's, unfortunately, they're not paying me to say that. If they would like to, I can give them my Venmo. But that's
I mean, I've used Toast and I didn't, it was a little too much for like that business. Like, I feel like it's catered to like personalized businesses, so it's whatever it works for you,
Yeah, we didn't choose it for the Snug. Like, it wasn't what we were using for the Snug for a lot of those reasons.
Right.
They've been really on top of this situation.
Yeah, for online ordering, the ease of like setting up all the menus and having multiple subgroups, there was just a lot of functionality that was missing from all the other ones. And that's the other thing too, is that if we're asking people to use a QR code to go online, it has to be smooth and easy, because you can see, especially with people who aren't as technically savvy, that it becomes like a little bit frustrating, and you have to make that situation as easy as possible.
Yeah.
Especially when you're working like with minimal bones, like it's to make it like seamless throughout your workday. You're already like stressed enough trying to like juggle everything and like make drinks and like doing the order and like bring drinks and food out. Like, you want to make sure like everything is good for you,
Yeah. I'm going to touch on this, and I wasn't planning on doing this, but I feel like, especially because I know both of you and what you do, I feel like you guys will appreciate this. But so the interior bar, like the bar itself, right? The only reason why anyone comes in is to use our restroom, and we have like it all marked up. So when we went to open it, we're like, let's run out of one well. We've got stick blenders, we've got all the gadgets, and we had to rethink it because we're like, wait a minute, we don't have to make this look the same anymore. We don't have guests in front of us.
Yeah.
We can really get wild. So full disclosure, I mean, I'm looking at it, but like, we got a fast food kitchen screen, and it's in front of the well, and the tickets come up on the screen with timers on it, and you can tap it and close, like shut them down. And so you can be working and look up and pop up, and you have a timer to each ticket, which, like, if you are like, Lindsay Nader is my girlfriend, and she's one of the fastest bartenders on the planet. I mean, she's unbelievable. This is like heaven to her, because it's like, if you're a service well junkie, come work at the Doobie Bar, because you're going to love it, because that's all it is. And you're getting bombarded with these huge tickets with large groups, and it's coming up on a screen in front of you that you can touch and maneuver. Oh yeah. And
I want to come play. Let's do a pop-up, Amy.
So fun. So fun. And I think it's reignited our love for like that kind of like grind service wall situation, but also scratching the itch of like a fun little challenge. And then we don't have to worry about garnish, because that bartender themselves aren't dealing with any guests. So there's no need for them to have garnishes around them at all.
Yeah.
So then you're just going. And it's allowed us to get really, really interesting and manipulate it. If we want to talk briefly about a quick cocktail, we do a Miami Vice, and we had this really great idea to freeze strawberry juice and use that as the ice in the blender. Just that up. So this is allowing us to be a little bit more technical and also fast at the same time. So we got that screen from Toast for free, I believe.
Well, they kind of accidentally sent it to us.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that worked out. Yeah, or maybe like, never mind. We didn't have a screen. No, we didn't get anything extra. God forbid. But we set up a new station, and it's been really fun and inspiring for us. But let's get back to the quarantine slide real quick. Okay, so I'm going to touch on the first one, and then I'm going to let Russell explain it. I want to be very clear. This was Russell's idea, and I think this is so brilliant. So we realize that contact tracing is an issue. Somebody gets it. We need to be able to quickly adapt and adjust, and God forbid they get really sick. But we need to also make sure that our staff can pay their rent. We've currently lost the $600 federal support. So now is a time that they need money. And we need to make sure that just because somebody goes down, we don't all go down. And so as morbid as that might sound, like that's just the way we need to think about it, because, you know, life is much more complicated than that. So Russell had this idea to divide everybody up into teams, and that's allowed them to not only have a social network, but also they only exclusively worked with those people. So if one person went down on that team, the whole team was removed out of the schedule and put on a 14-day, and then they had to go get tested all of them have to get tested to get back in. Now there's multiple layers to that, because obviously somebody goes out of town, so there's team A, B, C, and D, and they have funnier names than that, like Caribbean Princess. I don't know. They name them stuff, but they can swap within two teams, right? So there's essentially 8 people that are allowed to work together in different versions. And what was important about these teams was not only to maintain our ability to stay open, but their own mental health, and they can go and have a drink with a group of people. It extended their social network and gave them a strong community to work with. And we're seeing that work. They're going out on their nights off together. They're planning on going camping together, you know, and it all of a sudden made it okay for them to spend time with people. And a lot of our staff are really young. And so it's a little bit hard to talk about sometimes, but they're really young and they live alone. And this gave them a chance to like have people in their life. And I think that that's one of the hardest things about the situation. Like, losing your business, losing your mental health is far more important. And so we have to make sure that we take that in consideration. So the way that we built these teams was to kind of make sure that they were stacked. Why don't you explain how you stacked them? Because Russell ultimately built these teams, and this is working. We're doing it. It's functioning. And so I think this is just a really big asset for anyone who's thinking about going and trying to open something.
So when the Snug actually first started, we had basically kind of like a 2-tier system where we had a layer of fully seasoned bartenders from all throughout the area, and then people like me who had never worked before. And so with now also too, we have this chance to really like hone in and really like train people up in a way that we couldn't before. So we have basically some leads, and then we have our baby bartenders who are up and coming, and then we have some brand new rookies. We're throwing a couple of prep guys in the mix. And so the fun thing about this is we have people who we know we can count on, who will make sure everything's right, but they can also kind of step back and allow, you know, a baby bartender to go in that service well and crank it out, and they can get the bar back for.
Yep. Yeah, and there's no guest, right? So think about what a tremendous training situation that is. It's essentially the bar at 3 dots and a dash that's hidden in the back room. Like, you can really train people because there's no one in front of them. So, you know, I think a lot of people weren't necessarily motivated to come back to work because they were making the money and it was a little bit unsafe. But this motivation, is inspiring part of their job where they could grow as a bartender, I think meant a lot for them.
Yeah.
And we've got people who have never, ever really stepped foot behind a bar who are now grinding out Miami Vices. And we're like, you know, with a bar spoon, like smacking them every time they do something wrong. And like, it's a really fun team building thing. And the big thing was empowering these mentors to know that they're in charge, and for them to like make sure everyone walks away with learning something. And we also trust them with shutting the bar down, and, you know, because we have to kind of stay away from what they're doing as well, because we can cross-pollinate those teams as well. So, you know.
I was just going to say, I mean, the great thing about our team and the way we had it set up was when we actually did the R&D menu to get all this stuff for the Doobie Bar, we had a COVID scare where me, Trevor, and the management team all had to go get tested, but they handled it all themselves. And they got everything done and whipped up in 2 days.
Yeah.
And that's really a testament to like the group. And it was some of the mentors, some of the new people, and it was really awesome to see, everything they came up with.
Yeah, and I think we should also acknowledge that there's a lot of humility that's going on behalf of the star bartenders that we have. We have some really talented people who are pretty recognized, and they're working at Snug Junior bagging burgers. And one of the big things is we decided that everybody was on an even playing field, so the tip situation is flat across the board. They split it with everybody, and that's just, it's team in, team out. And I think it takes grabbing your ego and shoving it in the trash can to realize that we all need to be here for each other and look out for each other. And I think our team has done that. And I think it sets a really nice tone when people see the really recognizable bartender sitting in the lifeguard tower, seating people, and knowing that that's where we're at, Leo, can you go back to the slide? I felt like there was one more thing I wanted. Oh, right. Okay. So the last thing we wanted to do is we've realized that we as a community and personally haven't spent enough time normalizing the fact that mental health days are just like sick days. Like, somebody gets a flu, we're like, don't come in here. If someone's having a breakdown, they're like, suck it up.
Yeah.
And so more now than ever, and this dot, full disclosure, I put this on here because I personally am having a little bit of a hard time because it's just exhausting, and I'm feeling like I can't stop. And I should. And one of our employees, came and showed, and then he was embarrassed to say that it was because he was just having a really hard day. And I think that's a little bit of I think that could be more common, or I guess not more common, but it's common with guys to be like, I'm fine. And
yeah.
I think we
bury it down very deep.
Yeah, bury it, because yeah. So and I don't want anyone to think that that's gender specific, because that everybody does that. And but it's just this circumstance, and I think we realize we need to make a better effort to normalize that. And you know what? When we've said this before to our team, and I think this should resonate with any bar managers or owners out there, it is absolutely okay to close your bar because the team is in okay.
Yep.
It is okay to give up that money. If you really want to make it, this is not a sprint, this is a marathon, and developing the trust and gaining that passion for your team is far more important than that $2,000-$3,000 you just lost out on. If you just can't think about that, or you can't think like that. And I think for us, this was a lot of the heavy lifting we did early that gained a lot of trust with our team in a crisis. If you want to find out how strong your relationships are, put them through a hard situation.
Yeah.
And I think if you really want to see what the payoff is for loving the people that you work with and putting them first, this is the moment where you really either need to fix that, or you need to appreciate the hard work you put into that. And I think that's really big for us.
I always say you can always make money, but you can never buy health. That just, you just can't do that.
Yeah. And I mean, this has been really, really rough, but I'm hoping going to really influence a lot of change. And I hope we can come out the other end. And for all of you young bartenders or people who are just currently trying to figure out what to do, you can do it. It's okay. And you also don't have to do it. You can just relax and spend time with your family, and you can do nothing, and that is okay. But if you really want to knock it out, proceed with caution, because they're going to be changing rules on you constantly, and that's just going to be the nature of the beast. We're probably in this for a while, but start to think about it. I mean, Russell and I were laughing, we're like, now is the moment to we could sell popsicles. I mean, why not? Turn your bar into an ice cream spot. Go for it. Start slow. Use your following. Use your network you already have. The Doobie Bar doesn't have an Instagram page. It just took over the Snug one. I wasn't going to try to rebuild 7,000 followers. Just use your free marketing of Instagram.
Yeah.
Maybe ask some friends to help out with trade. If they like cheeseburgers, that's great. And try to make it work and start super small and just build a little following. And you may not make it. You may not make enough to pay your rent, but the distraction and the creative challenge might be enough to make you happy.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we need right now.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's important too is to make sure whatever you're doing feels good. That's one of the nice things. I left last night and left the staff, and I was just standing there looking out and seeing everyone sit there, and it just felt good. It felt like we were doing it right. And so even if this doesn't work one way or another, I'm still happy about the process that we've gone through and like where we are right now.
Yeah. If you can tell, we're excited about it.
It's beautiful. You should be excited about it. That is setting the bar right there for the way in which we should be taking care of our teams and setting best practices in place for this situation. Obviously, you wouldn't have told us that if you didn't know who either one of us were, and plus you're super proud of it as well. But like, this is exactly the kind of stuff that we're preaching on a day-to-day basis in our own businesses and in our work, and the way we take care of our teams, and the way we're trying to teach other people to take care of one another. Like, you are doing it. That is.
You guys are setting the bar for the bar.
Correct.
Hey.
What you're doing should be like standard.
Yeah, and that's how we feel about it. And I always feel uncomfortable doing seminars because I feel like there's a lot of back padding that happens. In reality, it's just somebody talking about what the status quo should be or the standard should be. And we do not think of ourselves that way at all. We just think that we just want to inspire, and that's the biggest thing. And we felt like we were capable of handling that through Doobie Bar and Snug Junior, making people feel good. And now we want to extend that now that we have a little bit more energy and we're really proud of what we've done. We want to extend that, and I hope the takeaway from this is that it inspires at least one person to go out and change their, maybe just their immediate 4 blocks and make it feel extra special. Something super silly. And I think if anyone, Russell and I are easy to find. If you go to the @SnugCA Instagram, it looks like Doobie Bar now, but it's @SnugCA. You can message us, ask us questions. If you have any great ideas, please share. We're really into creative ideas, and we love to talk about them. And we would love to answer any questions, or if anyone wants to come check us out and see what we're doing and make a road trip, like, please, we will roll out the red carpet and give you a hot dog when you get here.
That is perfect. Thank you all so much. We do have like a handful of questions. Some of them, a lot of them are like, "Are you hiring? We're in love with you."
As my mom wrote that, huh?
Thanks, Mom. But one of the big things that came through, and I think it's important to touch on, since the food is kind of taking over, how has learning about costing of food has it been a challenge? Has it been easy? How did you learn to do that versus liquor? I think it's two very different worlds.
Yeah.
How did that work for y'all?
Well, for one, there's a head chef at the pub, and he obviously manages that. That's what he does for a living. But I will tell you that we had to rethink it because we kind of saw the food as a loss leader for this vessel for the drinks, and in reality, that wasn't the case. So we can't be selling something at a low margin. That's the most popular item, unfortunately. It was an accessory in our mind, but it didn't become that. So we had to adjust and work with our purveyors. It turns out that a lot of the purveyors are really excited to sell stuff right now because they're having a hard time doing it. So we were able to get some really nice discounts and find affordable food. But the costing out food thing wasn't handled by us at all, but it was influenced for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. We have a pretty good model for costing cocktails and stuff like that. Like, that's something we take a lot of pride in. But
are you in a spreadsheet sharing kind of feels like if you were contact you?
Yeah, I about 10 years ago, I set out to I realized there's a lot of currency in the bar world, and that was these compendiums. And I had done a lot of trainings. I came up at the Rick House there, Castro, and then at Heaven's Dog, and I've worked with Alex Day and Devin Tarby and then Sam Ross. I went through his training for Milk and Honey, and so I acquired these things, and I realized that now they're really big tools for getting spreadsheets from people like Jason Luttrell and people who have these amazing spreadsheets. So if you ever get a spreadsheet from me, it's highly unlikely that I made it, but I traded for it. Yeah, but we love that stuff, like analytical data. All that is really, really important to us. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So what, you guys are hiring?
Say that, are we hiring?
Yeah.
I think we might need to. To be totally honest with you, we're actually building another bar right now down the street. So we started the project before COVID, and it's almost done. It's called Rochambeau. And it's a low ABV, we call it a low no ABV wine bar that kind of focuses a little bit more on old world natural processes. So in the middle of doing all this, I'm building a bar, and it's across the street from my house. And so we've got that going on. So yeah, we probably will be hiring, because guess what? It's not going to be in a bar anymore. It's going to be a wine store.
Oh, nice. You guys should open up one in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I'm into it. I mean, I'd probably be closer to Hunky Dory, to be honest with you.
I'm sure Claire would love that.
Oh, I love her. She's amazing.
Well, I have a personal question. Just you touched on it a little bit, but was there any, like, Russell, if you created that kind of team setting, what was the inspiration for that, and what was the inspiration for you all personally for ensuring that you invested in the mental health of the people that work for you? I know you said you personally are going, we're all personally dealing with something, but mental health is as necessary as dental health. So why did you all decide to invest in that kind of structure for your team and that kind of dedication to their health and well-being?
I think, at least for me, the team aspects started because I kind of had to accept the fact that, like, there's a good chance that even if you're being safe and you're trying to do everything you can, you might still get sick. And so, like, how do you limit exposure? Well, obviously, the same way you limit your circle. And so it kind of happened somewhat naturally. And then you also have the fact of, like, okay, we all still need some sort of human interaction. And so how do you kind of minimize that? And so some of that was just, like, figuring out, like, okay, who's gonna be seeing each other anyway? Let's just make sure it's, like, set in stone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a coincidence that highly empathetic people are, like, susceptible. And I think if you are really great at service and if you fit the core, like, we don't hire for experience. Like, a resume means absolutely nothing to us. And so we naturally create gravity for empathetic people. That's just kind of who our team is. And so I think that makes us really susceptible to the feelings of others and the feelings that we have ourselves. And so it made sense that we were going to cultivate a culture of empathy, that we need to be more conscious on the way that we're being empathetic to each other.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Anything else?
All right. So I guess it's that time. It was lovely to have both of you, Trevor and Russell. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another Monday of Marvelousness. Thank you, Amy, Ketel One, another round, another rally, and Portland Cocktail Week. Join us next week if you want your Monday to be marvelous.
Nice. Nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Have a great day.
See you soon.